They cheated Liverpool. They robbed Liverpool. And it is absolutely right on every single level for Liverpool Football Club to write. Okay, it's absolutely correct that they write to they contact the PGMOL. They should also be contacting the FA. They should also be contacting the Premier League. And if we are going to throw a little joke in there, they should probably be contacting the police as well, because it was daylight robbery. Disallowing Van Dijk's goal yesterday was a robbery. Now look, please like, share and subscribe. We're going to get into this in a little bit more detail. Like, share, subscribe, hit the hype button as well. But this message is important. I want to start off. We shouldn't have to in 2025. But there's a lot of people that are not part of our community that may end up seeing this video, especially with you sharing and liking and commenting. And this is no way excusing the poor performance from Liverpool. But it is okay to have mutually exclusive conversations. And as much as Liverpool should be criticised for their performance, that does not mean the PGMOL going back against their own word. Howard Webb now looking like a hypocrite. That's why you've heard nothing from them officially up until this point. And this is being recorded at around 4 p.m. UK time on the 10th of November. So by the time you watch this, maybe something's been produced. Is they are working now on damage limitations. And Liverpool taking matters seriously and contacting them, as you can see from the headline from Sky Sports, is the exact right way to go on every level. What I believe we'll see from Howard Webb is an apology. But what they're weighing up right now, and it could go the other way, I'm not trying to be Nostradamus here, where they look for a nuance as to why that goal was rightfully disallowed, then we're going to see a change. And when I talk about a change, and this is why Liverpool have contacted the PGMOL, is we've seen multiple examples. Some, the players are slightly further away. Some, they're in similar proximity. However, there's multiple examples, both domestically and in Europe, of players being somewhere in the eye line of a goalkeeper and ducking out the way of the ball, moving their body out of the way of the ball, or moving in a way in which you are distracting the goalkeeper. But these have been consistently, both in the UK, in the Premier League, and in Europe, these have consistently been given as onside. Unless the player tries to play the ball, unless they physically challenge the goalkeeper, or unless they're directly standing in the eye line of the goalkeeper, so they just can't. So if the goalkeeper has to move their position to be able to see, then they've been given as offside. And as we can see when you put the graphic up, right until even the ball goes past him, Donnarumma has had a clear sight of the goal. All Robertson has done is duck out the way. Now, we have to remember here that, we'll put this up on the screen, that when City were awarded a goal last year, if you haven't seen this, we're going to go through it again. It says that John Stones heads it forward, then Silva's position becomes relevant. He says, then we have to judge whether he has committed an offside offence. So it's always important to remember this. Being in an offside position doesn't necessarily mean you're offside. He says now to do that, he has to be in an offside position, which he is, but he also has to do other things. He either has to touch the ball, which he doesn't. Robertson doesn't touch the ball. Neither does he attempt to play the ball. He either has to be in the line or sight of the goalkeeper. He is not. So what they don't consider to be in the goalkeeper's sight is within your peripheral vision. So Robertson's standing here, Donnarumma's looking this way where the ball's being headed. So it'll be, you see him, but it's peripheral vision. He is not in front of him blocking his view. The goalkeeper also makes an attempt to dive to his right-hand side because he thinks that's where the header's going. The reason that the header is unstoppable for Donnarumma is because, I wouldn't say it's a mistake, I wouldn't even criticise it. He doesn't know what way the header's going to go, but he anticipates it wrong and he moves towards the right-hand side, so he's going to have a better chance of saving it. He thinks that's where the ball's going to go. And in fact, it goes in the opposite direction. The fact he can recognise it's gone in the opposite direction is proof that his view was not blocked. He then has to say, has he then in some way challenged the goalkeeper? This was obviously talking about the one that City was given. Now, Robinson hasn't challenged the goalkeeper. He hasn't tried to win the ball from the goalkeeper, hasn't tried to put the ball in himself or anything along those lines. Or impact his movement, make physical contact with him. He hasn't impacted his movement because we know he hasn't impacted his movement because he was at full stretch to get to that ball. It wasn't as though he tried to come out to punch it but couldn't get there because Robinson was in the way. That is when he would be offside. He says he doesn't do any of those things as we can see. And there's nothing. Now, people are using the phrase like making a deliberate attempt. If you actually listen to the audio from Silva's goal that we mentioned, if you actually go back to the clip that was up here and look at the audio from Silva's goal or the audio from Ake's goal where Akanji moves out the way, it is stated in that moving out of the way of the ball's potential flight isn't making an obvious attempt to play the ball or interfere with play. So, and that both those decisions were backed by Howard Webb. So the PGMOL have told you, me, and the entire footballing world what is and is not an offside offence in these cases when you're in an offside position, but you're not attempting to play the ball or you're not in the way of the goalkeeper or not in the direct line of sight. So to not only give the decision in the opposite direction, but for the check to take a matter of seconds when we have seen them deliberate on much easier situations for 2 or 3 minutes at a time, calls into question here competence, and for some people, there's an integral matter. So I saw this shared by a lot of Liverpool fans today. Michael Oliver was the VAR, okay? And these numbers were put up. Since Michael Oliver went to work in the UAE and had reportedly personal dealings with City's owners who are involved with the football in that region, the win percentage of games that Michael Oliver has refereed versus Liverpool are at 34% compared to 74% of City. Arsenal's win percent is higher, but still 9% below that of Manchester City. And you can just see that they've got a smaller amount of games, but 7 losses in those games and those draws. There's obviously been some massive decisions that have gone against Liverpool in that period. And again, Liverpool Football Club, and this is more the fans than the official writing to the PGMOL, are saying, could there be a conflict of interest? Why has this decision gone so badly in the other direction? This was shared by Alex Gilroy-Trott that, yes, Premier League referee worked in the UAE in September 2023, officiating an ADNOC Pro League match after being approved by the PGMOL. He was part of the trip that also included assistants Stuart Burt and Dan Cook, with Darren England serving as a VAR. This occurred less than 48 hours before a separate VAR error in the Liverpool-Tottenham match, which led to a question about the potential conflict of interest due to the owner of Man City having ties to the UAE. Of course, the PGMOL maintained that the trips were approved, but it also goes on to speak about the controversies of this and why this is seen as wrong and why this is seen as a conflict of interests. And look, as you will know, if you've watched my content for a long time, I do have an agenda against the PGMOL. I think they're not fit for purpose. I think they are incompetent. Do I believe that there is corruption going on? Not on a wide scale. I don't believe there is a conspiracy against any one club. I don't believe another club is paying for the PGMOL to hurt Arsenal or hurt Liverpool. I don't believe that. Do I think it's plausible that certain referees have biases? Yes. Why do I believe that? Well, the amount of ex-referees have sat on podcasts in recent times explaining that they held grudges against teams and against certain managers. With everything that happened with David Coote, I think you would be a fool to not believe it's possible at the very least. And this is why I've said for a while an internal investigation needs to be instructed. The Premier League and the FA need to come together and force this upon the PGMOL. What are they doing to maintain the highest possible abilities? What are they doing to tackle the inconsistencies that we see on a regular basis? How are they managing these situations? What protocols are in place? We've seen what's happened in Turkey recently with the huge investigation revealing hundreds of referees across their leagues hold betting accounts. Are we doing the same types of internal investigations with our referees? And that isn't to cast any accusations their way, but it should just be a matter of course that these things are looked into and these things are checked, as opposed to, we checked them when they started working for us 10, 20 years ago, and then we leave them to their own devices. This would be crazy, because human beings naturally are corruptible. And we've seen this through every walk of life, in every industry in the world, since time began. So the idea that it wouldn't happen to football referees in the Premier League, I think, is too far-fetched. I don't necessarily think this is corruption. That's my personal feeling. I think this is incompetence. I think this is just... I'm not going to say they don't care about their job. But sometimes I feel as though I wouldn't be surprised if there was footage that came out of the VAR truck or the studio they sit in where they're not even paying attention at times, and then something happens and they have to react quickly. That's the impression they give me. It's like a boy's day out. Oh, God, there was a decision. We were looking at that girl you took on a date from Tinder, right? I just feel like there's something like that going on. Something feels off. The inconsistencies in these decisions need to be addressed, and it needs football fans to come together. I'd never want Liverpool to win a football match. You all know, you've watched me long enough. I thought you had a fantastic summer. It hasn't actually worked out on the football pitch, but I criticise you, I have a laugh with it, I banter it, right? That's part of football. And you guys do the same to me with United. But I won't sit here and stand on the side of the PGMOL when they damage Liverpool in a game just because of tribalism. Because all I feel I'm guaranteeing is that one day that's going to hurt my club, and it has on multiple occasions. And I want better and more consistent refereeing for every single football club in England, not just my own. This isn't about my agenda, and I do have one, isn't about trying to get an edge for Man United. It's about trying to get better officiating in this country. Liverpool, well done to you for calling them out and pursuing this. We know you were robbed. For me, it's an opinion. By the way, I've got to say this is an opinion, so I can't be sued. But in my personal opinion, I think you were robbed, and I think you were cheated via incompetence yesterday. And they've confirmed it by their radio silence for the last 24 hours, in my humble opinion. They're putting together their excuses. I think they're in a crisis meeting, deliberating whether to apologise and say it was a mistake, or to now set a new precedent and go in a brand new direction to prove it was right. We saw it with the Gyökeres Nick Pope incident, where there was a slight touch and suddenly that was okay. And there's been loads of penalty shouts since where there's been a very slight touch of the ball and a player's been taken out and no penalty's been given because they're trying to look like they're consistent. But it goes against multiple decisions for the previous 3 or 4 years that they defended in the opposite direction. And this is the insulting part. They think we as football fans are stupid just because we're working class, just because they see us as whinging customers. They think they can fob us off with nonsense. So well done to Liverpool Football Club. I actually would like to see all the other 19 clubs, including Man City, back Liverpool Football Club on this and right into the PGMOL, right to the local MPs, right to the FA, and demand a full inquest into the incompetencies and the inconsistencies that are the only consistent is the inconsistencies from the PGMOL, from the VAR, and from the referees. Richest league in the world, best league in the world. This, keep your long throws, keep your set piece goals. This is what damages our brand. Please like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you all again soon. Thank you.